back to Great Northwest Weaponry. This is Thomas, and today we're doing something I've been meaning to do for quite a while. We're going to be talking today about the differences between early war and late war Arisaka Type 99s. I do only have two examples in front of us today, and this is a topic, we went over a bit of this when we did the original Type 99 demo. I will be linking that in the video description for this video. We also talked at length about the evolution of the Type 99 bayonet in a separate video, of which I will also be linking in this video description, as all of these are intrinsically related, this group of three videos here. I've been putting this off because the late example seen back here, this is a 34th series Toyo Kugyo example, does not belong to me. This belongs to my friend Dylan, and I've been waiting in the hopes of getting it out to do a full-length rundown of just the late war Type 99, but he is intending on selling it in the near future, so wanted to get it done now while I still have access to it. My example in the front is a second series Nagoya. There are a lot of small differences between the two. You can probably see quite a few of them from the angle you're looking at them right now. One of the big ones being just that I have a dust cover on mine and there isn't one attached to Dylan's, but that is actually something that we'll be talking about a bit, as it was very common for late war examples to be issued without the dust cover. Again, for more of a history of the Type 99 and how it came to be, I would advise taking a look at the full-length demo we did on the Type 99 in general. Here, we're mostly going to be looking at the differences. There won't be shooting in this video. We did shoot my example in the full-length demo. So, with that being said, an enormous amount of this is going to be tabletop, and that is probably going to take us right up to the end of the video. So, but before we go there, real quick, I will state exact dates on either of these unknown. It does appear like, again, this is a second series Nagoya and a 34th series Toyo Kugyo. Some of the features on this 34th series are features that didn't come up until like late 1944, early 1945. So it is definitely a late example of the gun, whereas my example has features that were by and large done away with by 1942. So with that in mind, tabletop, let's take a look at the differences between these two rifles. Now, there are a ton of differences from these early, 1941, 1942 examples to these 1944 and 45 examples, and not everything that I'm going to be mentioning here is visible on either of these examples. So there will be a couple things that I bring up, just bear in mind, that are not shown here. For example, on the bolt head itself, or the bolt handle rather, both of these have a very similar bolt handle. Typically, the really late ones, this bolt handle would not be machined round. It would be just kind of squared off. It would be, circular going that direction, but flat on this end, not beveled down to the kind of egg shape that you see on both of these examples here. Arisaka bolts are kind of tough to close from that angle, as it turns out. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and start at the nose of the rifle. So, early war example. See, your front sight has ears, got a full wraparound front barrel band there with bayonet attachment, and there is a hole here for a cleaning rod. Also, the top handguard, starts at the rear sight and goes all the way to the front barrel band. On the late example, conversely, you have no protective wings on the front sight, no hole for a barrel band, and the handguard ends at this first barrel band here. The barrel bands themselves also are actually a little bit different. You see, this one has a notch cut out in here on the early example, and on the late example, it does not. Also, the early example has the attachment point for a monopod. That was something that was done away with pretty early, was the monopod. You start seeing a lot of mid-war examples that is no longer present, but all other features that would be considered early war may still be there, except for maybe the airplane sight, which is the next thing that we're going to be talking about here, is these rear sights. So you can see there is a wild difference from here to there. The, again, airplane sight, as seen here, has these wings that fold out that would be used for gauging the windage of an aircraft, and then the sight itself can be moved up and down for distance. Then you've got a peep sight in the middle there. This sight design could be considered to be wishful thinking. From what I've heard, the understanding of how these are supposed to be used seems to be that it was a kind of a company thing, like the whole group of soldiers would be told the windage and range, and then everyone would fire at once in the hopes of somebody hitting. But I've not really seen anything confirming or denying even directly whether or not this was ever effective. Again, it seems to be kind of wishful thinking to my eyes. So the wings on, the windage bars on this sight were basically the first thing to be done away with. These disappeared very quickly after production started because it just was kind of a waste of time and was not effective enough to keep it going. But by the time you get to these really late examples, there's no fold-up portion of the sight at all. You've just got the fixed rear sight, of which would function like the battle sight seen sitting right there. Another thing to look at is just general stock conditions. So you can see the bevels for your finger groove here on the early war example. It is smooth inside. It is fairly well machined. And on the late example, there are chatter marks all throughout here. Some of this stuff can be boiled down to the lack of skilled labor left in Japan late in the war. A significant amount of skilled laborers in the Empire of Japan were either sent to the front lines and died there, or just never returned, or they were killed in bombing raids as the war progressed and the Allies began to close in. Another thing to note is the recoil lug on both rifles. It is clearly a much different setup on the early war example versus the late war example. This thing is huge, but it seems to have a key that would make it easier to remove. Probably beneficial for general takedown, as these early ones you'd have to punch it out. Also, there is a relief hole for presumably to relieve pressure from spent shells, but again, how effective that is would be debatable, and you can see on the late war example that is something that was done away with. Most of the stuff that was changed with the Arisaka from early war to late war was just to ease production because, again, skilled labor was in short supply. You'll see some other examples of what we're talking about as we move along the rifle that are purely cost-saving measures. For example, on the early examples, you have your series of characters here that indicates Type 99. Type 99, where we get the term Type 99. Talk at a little more length about that in, oh, I forgot, Arisakas, you can't do the trigger pulling trick that you can with other Mauser-based designs. Anyway, that marking completely done away with on, well, I guess it would be over here actually, on the late or last ditch example. Both of these do have intact chrysanthemums though, which is a cool feature to have. A lot of those were ground off and done away with. Again, that is something that we talk about more in the other video on Type 99s that we've done up to this point. Another thing to note, the cocking piece of the bolt got considerably more crude. Just the metalworking in general did, but the actual back of the bolt itself here, I'll extract from this rifle to show. You can see here, this is just like weld slag that has been smoothed down. And as we have a dust cover attached to mine, I'm not going to pry it off. I'm going to see if I can angle this so that you can see it. Okay, there we go. That's pretty visible. See, this is textured. That, again, is just another one of those things that the lack of skilled labor made so that it was more trouble than it was worth to maintain. And again, just general machining, there are things about these later examples that just look rougher. You can see machining marks all over the metal on this. Though the exterior of it actually looks surprisingly good for something so late. And with an Arisaka, you can generally just push the bolt straight in. You do have to pretty aggressively pull down to get that cock. And again, with the Type 99, there is no way to drop the hammer without pulling the trigger. It's something you should avoid doing too much. I would advise getting some sort of a snap cap if you can. But now making our way to the back end of the rifle. On this late example, you'll see that the butt pad of this is this very crude, just slab of wood And that is about as crude as it gets. The vast majority of these rifles would have a metal butt plate, as seen on my example here. Screw on that end and then screw on the top. These wooden examples often just nailed straight on. They definitely were desperate for supplies as the war went on, hence the dramatic dip in quality and time spent making these machines nice. And again, we don't have a complete representation of every alteration that both of these, this design generally went through over the course of the war, but you get a good feel for the difference between early and late examples of the rifle displayed here. And again, there are multiple other variations of the Arisaka rifle that do not fall into the Type 99 category at all, really. Is the Type 44 with the folding bayonet that we've talked about. I desperately want to get my hands on one at some point. There's the Type 2 paratrooper rifle that can be bisected. It's like screws on right in the middle here. It's really, really strange example. And then there's the various models of Type 38, including the long rifle and carbine. There's a lot to love about Arisakas, but definitely be wary with these late examples. If you are interested in a last-ditch Arisaka, they have issues. Sometimes they just don't work. This one has issues. The firing pin just is not quite hitting hard enough on the primer to set it off. We replaced the recoil spring, didn't do the trick. It seems that the inside of the bolt body was not milled enough for the firing pin to strike. We even tried swapping firing pins just to see if it was a firing pin issue, and it wasn't. Both firing pins worked in my rifle, and neither of them worked in Dylan's rifle. So bear in mind, if you want last ditch for the sake of having last ditch, have at it. They're definitely cool historically. They're a very sought after thing actually amongst collectors is this, again, last ditch gear. But the earlier war stuff definitely functions better. Anyway, it's definitely something that's kind of been a long time coming. We've talked about it a lot. Definitely check out the other related videos linked in this video's description. It's been Thomas, Great Northwest Weaponry. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.